Oh my goodness, it's a bit scary up here. Hi. Just to make you all aware, this talk went through about 6 different variations of title. Originally it was called Please Don't Be Frightened of Discord. Then it was called My Boss Sang on Discord, What Do I Do? And then it was called My Community Don't Think I'm a Real Dev, but I really like Discord and I really want them to like me. And then it ran on and on and on. So eventually we settled with Fun Games in Discord. I'm going to try and stick to 20 minutes, but I'm going to go through how we as No More Robots, as a publisher, use Discord to spread the word about our games and keep people hooked on our games from announcement all the way through launch and then beyond as well. So it starts off with a little bit of sadness. Every week, the same tweet is posted in our virtual office, and it looks a little bit like these. Last week, there were 147 new releases on Steam, including early access and out of early access. Games with 0 reviews, 32.6%. That breaks my heart. Games with 1 to 9 reviews, 49.6%. And my heart breaks a little bit further. If you consider, even if we all know that there are a lot of nonsense games on Steam. It's not a secret. Even if we take those out, that's a stupidly high percentage for people's games who they've poured their lives and their souls into these things. These are passion projects. These are things that they adore. These are things that they love. And these are things that they've worked on for years and years and years. And they can't get more than 10 reviews on their game. And that, as I say, it breaks my heart. So it gets us thinking in the office. What is the very, very best way to grow a community for a game? Because if you've got a player base, you've got people playing your game, and that's ultimately what you want, right? The truth is, I've got no idea. This was a really quick talk. I hope you've all had a great day. No, honestly, we are still struggling to hit the very best way to create a community from game announcement all the way through launch. But have I got lots of silly ideas of how to engage a community and keep them hooked? Yeah, I've got them in space. So who am I? My name's Pip Hoskins. I am head of operations for No More Robots. I used to be a full-time Twitch partner. I used to stream variety every single day to lots of scary people, and there are lots of weird kind of face emotes of me out there in the wild. This year, I started working for No More Robots. I was their community manager part-time for about a week, at which point my boss went, "Nah, this is silly. Come on over, let's get you doing lots of things." So now I do lots of things and I wear lots of hats, and nobody seems to know what I actually do. But my favourite hat to wear while I'm at work is the community management hat. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. I love speaking to people. I love getting people interested in things. And apparently I have far too much fun pretending to be characters from the video games that we publish. So what is No More Robots? That sounds amazing. So we're a publishing label built around working with real people. I won't talk too much about us, but we're humans working with humans. Our company director, Mike Rose, uses data and maths and wizardry to try and work out how games sell, how we sell games best, and why particular games sell very well. We have 4 whole games that I can talk about if you'd ever like to hear about them. I'm going to touch on them very briefly during the talk. They're all very good. Please buy them. But the bulk of our community management as a company is done through metagames, is done through Discord. Basically, what we do is we announce a game, and then people come and play a game for the months between us announcing the game and the game releasing. So by the time that we release our game, they already know everything there is to know about the game, and they can't wait to play it. So just so that we're all on the same page, because I'm going to be going through how we run these metagames, how you set up a metagame super, super briefly, because I could talk for hours and you really don't want that, I promise. Discord is a free voice, video, and a text chat app. Discord looks like that up there. You can set up servers for specific purposes, so games, groups of friends, unfortunately for me, organising work. You break down those servers into channels so that people have different places to discuss different bits and pieces. You get emotes in them that are server specific, which is kind of nice. And it can be accessed via PCs, browsers, or mobile apps. Great, we're all on the same page. Mine happens to look like that. over there. It probably looks super familiar to a bunch of you, but just in case you haven't seen Discord before. Why do we use Discord? Why do we do this horrible, convoluted thing of talking to people for months and months and months and months and months? Well, it keeps bums in seats. Game announcements are really important. You all know that announcing your game is one of the most important things that you do. It allows people to know that your game's coming out. It's out there, it's being worked on. But how much good do they do for you in your long term? We just heard Twitter say that we've got 48 hours to create an impression, right? Beyond that, what are you doing to keep that announcement alive? So the way that we do it is when we announce a game, we funnel people into a Discord specifically for that game. It allows us to have constant contact with our prospective player base, either in a professional sort of capacity or, in our case, a personal one. Again, leaning on this human thing. I'm a community manager. I used to be a Twitch streamer. I really like speaking to people. And fortunately for me, the community very much likes, I think they do at least, speaking to me. So we set up these things and we introduce them to the game world that they are going to experience. Way before they get any kind of hands-on gameplay. We introduce them to game worlds, we introduce them to characters, we introduce them to themes. So that by the time they come to these games, they're so invested in it. They know exactly what they're getting into and they're ready for it. It also gives them an introduction to us. It gives them an introduction to the developer, so that the developer builds bridges with them. The next game that developer goes on to make, they've got a fan base there waiting for them, ready for their next game. The same with us as a publisher, and again the same as us as humans. They become a little bit invested in us as people, and that extra bit of contact is kind of nice, honestly. So, again, why this convoluted process? At the end of the road, once you've developed your game, you have to do the really, 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 really scary thing of launching it. Lot Tonight was my first launch that I had to sit through recently, and I don't think I slept for 3 days. Not because I was working, but I was sat there going, oh, I hope they're okay. I hope everybody's okay. I hope everybody enjoys it. Ooh. So I can't imagine what the developers were like, bless them. Luckily, for Not Tonight and for Descenders before it, we had communities already established and talking about the projects since public day one. Since those games were announced, we had discords of people already talking about what bikes they wanted to ride in our downhill mountain biking game. We already had people talking, unfortunately, about British politics when we announced Not Tonight. And that carried on until launch, which meant that the millisecond the game goes live, so does your player base. Imagine sitting there waiting to hope if somebody will pick up your game. Anybody, one person maybe. These devs don't really have that problem because they know that they've got that community there already waiting to pick up the game. Funnily, with Descenders, when we launched that, Mike got it horrendously wrong and the launch discount didn't click in to begin with. The community didn't care. They wanted to support the game. They wanted to support the developers that they'd seen working on the game. They wanted to support this project as it went forward. So a bunch of them just bought it without the launch discount in place. They're nice, genuine people who will end up really caring about your developers, you as a publisher, if you're a publisher, and definitely, definitely your project. It loops them into this nice buy, play, review thing, and it promotes useful activity on various forums. So we're very lucky in that Descenders at the moment is in early access. We've got a community that will help people on the Steam forums bug fix the game before we've even managed to get to it. Game's not launching and we're all asleep because we're in Britain? Not a problem. One of our community members in Australia has already gone, oh, if you send over the log file to Lex, he'll get it to you in the morning, it's not a problem. Or have you tried like Alt-Enter and just changing the resolution down from there? They've already done it. There's no toxicity involved, it's all nice, useful interaction. So if meta games are so great and easy to do, why don't you build one? Okay, I will. First we've got to set up our Discord. So, make it specific to your game. We've played around a little bit with making it publisher specific, but we find that having a specific place that they can talk about that specific game, much, much better. Think about your channel structure, but we like to have an announcements channel that only admins can type in, only developers can type in, and that means that everybody in the server gets pinged when something goes live. Is there a new update? Is there DLC they should be checking out? Is there a new metagame thing that they could be doing? They can hear about it. It's this thing of having that constant contact with them. They're always listening to what you have to say, so tell them things. One of the things that we like to do is we like to separate general chatter from game chatter, but again, that's entirely up to you and your project and what works best for you. But it means that if people have spoilers, say, or if people have a problem with the game specifically, they've got a channel to do it in, away from all the memery. Make sure you've thought about your rules and permissions, as well as set the tone and think about your moderators. These are really, really important. Are you the sort of person who will allow any kind of meme? Or are you the sort of person who, the same as us, we don't tolerate any sort of homophobia, sexism, anything like that. That all goes. It's there in the rules. We set the tone from the beginning, and you find that after the first little bit, people even out. They understand the tone of your server, and they set it so that other people who come in get it. Don't be afraid of bots. We have bots that tell people when streams have gone live. If somebody's streaming the game, hey, the server tells you. If somebody's put up a YouTube video, hey, the server tells you. If they want to run a radio station in the morning, which the family man lot do occasionally, they've got a bot for that, and they can absolutely play music to each other in the morning before they go to school or go to work or whatever it is they're doing. And consider some emotes. These are actually a really great opportunity. So, these are a really great way to teach players about the people in your games. This is Grace. Everybody in the Family Man server adores Grace. She's a little old lady who you end up poisoning as far as the server are concerned, and they're now desperately trying to give her a place to live and get her out of hospital. When they get to Family Man, the actual game, when they get to the beta, they will recognize Grace straight away, and they know how they feel about her. There's a couple of characters in there, Lawrence, who is trying to force a date with a lady. They're not first on Lawrence. I can't wait for them all to get into the beta and beat him with a baseball bat. But they know these things. They've been introduced to the game world. They're familiar with it. In the case of Descenders, which is our downhill mountain biking game, we've got 3 teams. They separate themselves out into 3 teams who've got 3 distinct identities. They, by doing challenges, earn emotes for their team. They're a really, really great, and in a lot of cases, free thing that you can put in. The even more free thing that you can do, if you are looking at emotes, unfortunately for me, is put your face in. Again, I used to be a Twitch streamer. There's lots of silly faces I pull. But our Descenders like this actually came from the Rage Squid developers, who are absolutely wonderful, who all took funny pictures of their faces and used them as the emotes. And now everybody in the server knows every dev, they know what their role is, and they've got that little bit of a personal connection with them. So, you need a hook. If you set up your server, great. Why do people want to come to it? Think about the fact that free things bring people in. Often it's not enough to say, hey, you know, my game's great, please come and look. You need to offer them something. And there's a lot of free things that you can offer them on a scale from just some windows into development. How's development going? What are you working on today? This is a really funny bug, is one of the best ones. Demos and betas is at the other end. We run betas and they have to compete to unlock the beta. Now obviously we want to run a beta, but we can run these little mini games so that they get something in return. On the scale then again, you've got your game-related Discord emotes, or maybe even in-game items for Discord users if you've got a little bit of time. If Discord users have done something particularly good, hey, here's some fan art, great, here's a shirt that you can wear in the game. Little things like that too, well I say little things, things that you can do to reward them on that scale. So now you need your other hook. So just like your game, if you're going to run a meta game, that has to have a hook as well. So you need to look at a cool sort of flavorful thing to get people playing. Now you've already done the hard bit. You've already done this for your game. You know why players want to play your game. So now why do they want to play your meta game? Now your hook doesn't have to be exactly the same. All it has to do is echo that sort of flavorful hook that your game has. So these are the 4 games we have at the moment, and these are the 3 meta games that we run. So Descenders have 3 teams with distinct identities. They compete, they make fan art, they solve puzzles, they do challenges in-game. Who did the best flip this week? Who did the fastest run this month? They compete for in-game items and emotes. So at the moment, I actually think my team have the most emotes on the channel, which is great. Not Tonight, unfortunately, was my first ever foray into community management, and they role-played British politics and royal decision-making, which, as you can imagine, terrified me to my core. They had a royal family, they had a government, and they had the people. They owned pubs. They worked as a bouncer, the same as they do in the game. They had in-Discord money that allowed them to buy property. And then the royals went, I'm going to put taxes up. And the government went, yeah, go on then. And the whole of the people went ballistic. At one point, I think the princess tried to bomb the king, and it was all a bit of a mess. But you get the idea. They role-played British politics. Not exactly the same as our game, but it set up the flavour for the game. Hypnospace Outlaw, they're all building their own web pages. Hypnospace Outlaw is our 90s internet simulator, and it's beautiful, and it's ugly, and it's old, and I love it. And they're all building terrible pages and building terrible songs to do with, I don't know, what are we doing at the moment? They're selling me things. They're building a catalogue at the moment with items in. Not something that potentially could go in the game, but it sets them up with the feel of the game, and they're getting involved time after time after time. Family Man, they make 3 decisions a day about whether Joe is going to be able to pay back his $100,000 debt to the mafia and also keep his family happy. I write them a little D&D choice 3 times a day, and they vote on it as a server, and they have to work as a group. The second that they can pay off their $100,000, they get access to the beta. Little things to reward them that you would put into your development journey anyway, little bits that you have from your development journey, or little bits that you can build into your development journey. Give them as, things to get them into the server. We've talked about the fact that the beta for Family Man comes out. You cannot run metagames indefinitely. You can't just run them and 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 run them. Players will play them and play them and play them and play them and play them, but eventually you do have to go back to working on your game or doing tweets or writing emails or setting production schedules. And you can't sit there and run them all day. So set your community a goal, something for them to work towards. Again, we're talking about the unlocking the emotes thing, or hey, if you guys solve X puzzle this week, then let's have a sneaky look at an area of the game that you've not seen before. It doesn't cost you anything, but it makes them feel so, so special. The only thing I would say is it's not ever fair to ask them to get X number of members or X number of messages. Hey, when the server hits 2,000 members, we're going to give you all shirts, right? Because when they fall short, it creates this awful kind of salty feeling. Give them something that they can achieve and that you can help them achieve. You wouldn't believe how many times in Family Man they absolutely should have died, and I've gone, but wait, here's some plot armor. Because I want them to have that beta, I want them to succeed at it definitely. And of course the last thing is be a part of it. Don't be afraid to get elbows deep in your community. Don't be afraid to sit and play games with them. I promise they're not terrifying. I promise. They're good people to have fun with. And as long as you've set the tone of your server right from the start, you've said, this is allowed, this is not, this is the sort of atmosphere we promote here, by the time you get to here, you're going to have the most wonderful group of human beings to play games with you've ever met. I'm really lucky, I get 4 of them. And I can't wait to meet the next lot. On top of all that, we've talked about the fact that I'm quite a human. Add your own personal brand sprinkles. What is your brand like as a developer studio, as a publisher? Again, I'm very human. I like listening to my players, and I like kind of doing these little heartwarming things with them because they know me as a person. And with Family Man the other week, they all went, wouldn't it be nice to actually meet the characters? Meet Grace. Grace popped in the server to say hello. Grace is in a coma in hospital, and they all wanted to speak to her. So Grace woke up in the Discord awfully confused, wanting to tell them stories about her son. And they managed to, with a, gosh, it must have been about 20 minutes conversation, they managed to convince Grace to go with Joe and to sell her house and to do all the things that they needed to do as a community to set the story back on track. And they love it. They sit there and they whisper amongst themselves and they have little squeeze, and they all came away from it last thing on a Friday going, do you know what, that was quite nice actually. So you get these really nice moments. A slightly, maybe less nice moment, but I'm going to show you it anyway if I can. We had an inauguration for the King. King Kent Grimmer had, as part of the Not Tonight British politics nonsense circus, just let it play, it's wonderful, as long as there's sound. Oh, there you go. So he sang at Kent Grimmer's inauguration. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
Can we hear that right?
Oh, they can hear it, I bet, yeah. And you might sit there and go, my God, that's the cringiest thing I've ever heard. That's fine, that's not your brand. We're all silly human beings, so we do silly things. Thank you so much. There we go. We had an inauguration in the Discord where we had lots of people in a voice chat ready to crown King Kent Grimmer and make sure that his daughter, Princess Lambda, was well looked after. And we came out of the Not Tonight launch after experiencing that horror, and I'm glad I've passed it all on to you. We came out of it with players who will help other players on the Steam forums, who will talk about the game, who will help people who come into the server and go, I don't know how I do this bit. And they pull them into the spoilers channel and go, don't tell anybody else, but this is the answer. They're good, good people. And once you've done all that, you did it. Congrats. It's that easy. Spending a little bit of time with your community on something that's just fun and a little bit silly, but echoes the tone of your game, will set them up to be people who will spread the word about your game in a way that is effective and useful. And you get to hang out with some kind of nice people, which is kind of sweet. So yeah, that's how we do things. That's kind of the very, very, very basics of how we put together a Discord server in a Matter game. Thank you so much for listening. I'm a very terrified little human being, but if you see me on a break and you want to come and ask me some questions, I'm always, always happy to answer them. Thank you so much for listening.